Hey everybody, today we are going to have a close-up look at some of the crayfish in my new native tank. For my regular viewers, this video was shot about a week ago before I've put the new fish in there, so I currently actually have quite a few fish swimming around in the tank, and if you're wondering where they are not actually in there yet. So I was asked if I could shoot some video talking about my experience with crayfish, and I thought this would be a good way of doing it. We're going to watch the crayfish root around in the tank for a little while, and I'm going to discuss my experience with keeping them. So first of all, I should point out that I've never really been able to keep crayfish for any real length of time, and there's two main reasons for that. First of all, when you keep multiple specimens in a tank, they're very territorial and they tend to fight a lot. So smaller ones tend to not live very long, and you generally don't see them grow up. For the larger ones, or when they're kept for a couple in the tank, or maybe singularly, they always seem to manage to get out. I've never made any great lengths to try to keep them in the tank, but they are climbers, and they are strong, and they are escape artists. So I've had many crayfish that I've had for maybe a few months. See here, the crayfish is actually moving the camera all around for us, giving us a readjustment of the view. And in a little bit, you'll actually see the crayfish up in the sort of upper left-hand corner of the screen, and it looks like it's trying to attack the screen right there. What that is doing is trying to get the flashing red light on the camera. I've seen my fish go after the flashing red light, and I've seen the crayfish go after it before, and I believe we will see that again before this video is over. The crayfish up there trying to get that light. So that's always made me wonder about those fishing lures that have the flashing red lights in them. I've even bought one because of this, although I've never really used it, so I don't know whether it works or not. But that's what they're doing. They're going after that flashing red light right there. So again, I've never really been able to keep one longer than, we'll say, several months at the most. I have experienced them molting and going through their soft shell period, and of course when they do that, even if they're a larger one and you've got smaller ones in the tank, they become very vulnerable. And so they're a pretty aggressive, rough and tumble animal. Keeping them alive for any length of time is challenging for multiple reasons. So I can't really speak to long-term care of these. I don't think you'll have any problem with long-term care based on my experience. They are just really easy to care for animals. They can live in almost any kind of water. You would think, being crustacean, they would need hard water. Look at the size of rocks we're moving. Unfortunately, the way it's moving the camera around, we don't get a really good look at what it's actually doing at the moment. But they use their claws in the front to move the smaller rocks and gravel, and they sort of sniff stuff around, looking for tidbits of food and whatnot, and funneling it up into their mouth parts. But they will also use their big defensive claws there as shovels, or they'll even pick stuff up and move stuff out of the way. At some point, we'll have some leaf litter and some sticks and things in the bottom of the tank, and we'll be able to watch the crayfish do this. Except we'll be able to see them moving branches and stuff around, or at least it'll be branch size to them. So not really sure what they're doing right there, not going after the red light. The red light is in the upper left-hand corner, but it was definitely checking something out, possibly a reflection in the camera. It's hard to say. So they can be in almost any kind of water. As I was saying, they are, you would think with being a crustacean, they would need to come from hard water, and a lot of calcium in the water for them. But these have come from my local stream, and all the water around here is just loaded with these crayfish, and the water has 0 degrees hardness, and it has almost no carbonate hardness. It's really soft, acidic water, and yet these crayfish always seem to do fine. And I've never had any issues with them in my water, which again is very soft and acidic. As long as they've got calcium in their diet, I think they're fine. They don't necessarily need it in their water. So anything from soft acidic water all the way up to brackish water is fine to keep them in. They will eat almost anything. They forage constantly, like you're seeing now. They're always sifting through the gravel and moving and digging. So I believe vegetable material, whether it's leaf litter or actual live green plants, algae wafers, algae is probably their favorite. But they're also scavengers. They will eat meat or dead bugs, anything like that will get eaten. And they are opportunistic hunters. If you've got slow-moving fish or fish that sleep near the bottom of the tank, there is a good chance that during the night these crayfish may go ahead and grab the fish. So that is something to keep in mind. If you're going to keep crayfish like these in a tank with fish, then don't do it with any kind of fish that you're really attached to or not prepared to lose to a crayfish snacking on them. See, I think it's getting ready to go up after that blinking red light again. I'm not sure. Yeah, see, there it is. So as far as keeping them in the tank, that is a little tricky too if you want to keep your decor in any really specific stylized way, and that's because these are little construction workers. They're in there constantly digging and burrowing and moving rocks around. Some of the larger rocks in this tank eventually will get shifted and moved into new positions. That's why whenever I've got a tank that is going to have crayfish in it, I try to, well, first of all, I always position the egg crate plastic on the bottom of the tank before I put any gravel or anything on top of that. But I first position the larger rocks, and then I put the gravel around the larger rocks. And that, he's moving the camera around for us again apparently, that makes it so that even if the crayfish are digging and burrowing and they're moving some of the gravel around, the larger rocks are not supported by the gravel, and therefore as the gravel gets shifted around, the larger rocks don't move. If you've just got larger rocks that you've set on top of the gravel in your aquarium and you decide to put some crayfish in there, chances are pretty good that those rocks are going to get moved around. And if you've got any kind of scape that's ornate or very delicate, you've got lines of sand going this way or a certain color gravel separated here and there, don't even think about putting a crayfish in a tank like that. It'll absolutely destroy it. Any kind of plants are going to get destroyed in your tank. They will either get eaten and munched on and just ripped to shreds and torn up, or they will simply get dug up because, as I said, these are little diggers and burrowers. They will not only just sift and sort through the rocks while they're feeding, but they are burrowers. They dig tunnels out in their natural habitat, down in the mud along the banks, and that's where they spend the winters. But they also burrow down and they live in them, and they hide underneath of rocks, and they'll dig little caves and burrows out underneath the larger rocks in the tank. And there's all sorts of little bit of movement and construction and stuff getting shifted around. So that would be the main concern about putting them in a tank, would be, do you want your tank to be completely shifted around constantly? Because they will be. So in this particular tank, you can see it's basically got river gravel. I've got a few larger flat rocks that can't really be moved around all that much. And as I mentioned, we're going to be getting some leaf litter and maybe some sticks and twigs, maybe a little bit of woodwork will go in the bottom of the tank, and that will give the crayfish a few more places to hide and more stuff to forage around. Again, once there's some sticks in there, you'll actually see these crayfish start moving them around. They'll pick them up in their claws and they'll move them out of their way so they can get to the rocks they're looking for. Absolutely fascinating little animals. I highly recommend them if you've got the right tank conditions. So remember, they are escape artists. They're really strong. You can see how with ease they pick these rocks up and everything. Of course, these rocks are also underwater, so there's an added sense of buoyancy to them. I think he's giving us the evil eye. He's staring us down. He knows we're watching. He's just going to have to deal with it. So, anyway, as long as you've got a covered top, you've got fish you're not too terribly worried about, and you've got plenty of places for these to dig and burrow. I wouldn't put them in a glass bottom tank or anything like that. That would be cruel. These are diggers and burrowers, as I said, so they need sand, gravel. Again, if you've got a dirted tank, then you're going to have a mess constantly because these are going to be in there digging it up and just spreading it around, and it's just going to be a muddy mess. So stick to the sand and the gravel, and pretty much any kind of water and pretty much any kind of food is going to be good for these guys, and you're not going to have to worry about it. All in all, they are absolutely fascinating little creatures. They are fun to watch, and they just never really seem to stop moving, except for this one, who apparently is just going to stand there and stare at us for several minutes. So that's about all I've got to say. Can't really think of anything else. Make sure you're subscribed, that way you won't miss anything I've got coming up. Don't forget, this one is my new native tank. As I've already mentioned, we do already have quite a few fish in it. I've not seen the crayfish catch or eat any of those new fish just yet, but time will tell. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Sooner or later, I'm sure they'll catch one of them or something. Of course, if that happens, I'll get that on video so we can get more of the behavior of these little creatures on video. So thanks again for watching. Once again, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget, this one is my native tank.